sermon.
Yeah. I think, honestly, like, thinking about those words not as something that, like, we don't need to worry about, and not as something that, like, oh man, like, kind of just crushing legalism, but, like, yeah, that's the joyful way that we get to live in relationship with God. So, I don't know how much I got at that, but I think, like, having to think about that and process that was helpful and encouraging.
Okay. Caleb?
There we go. Thank you, Christian. Yeah, I think one of the things I appreciated most was the reminder that the observation of the law, that of this other-centered nature to it, and contrasting that with how we can think of things like just us and our coffee and Jesus, as you were illustrating. So yeah, that was seeing the goodness of the law in that way. I appreciate that.
Buddy?
That you said that our worship to God results in a life that loves our neighbor, love the others. I like that, and how you explain that from that the law is a good news for us, that is provided by God, by grace to us, to relationship to Him.
It's like the concept of relationship with God, and sometimes we look at the commandments as do's and don'ts, but it's bigger than that. It's just how we communicating with each other and just being in communion with each other, relationship with God, like that.
Yeah, mine was actually really similar to yours, where this idea that the law becomes this source of joy.
Yeah, I like the image you had of just wedding vows, and it gives a real kind of personal meaning to what's going on in the moment between God and His people. Which I thought was good and encouraging. What do you think you missed?
I think like a lot of things could have just been smoother. I just felt, in terms of transitions between things, or thinking about ways to illustrate that to kind of help us to understand. Yeah, I think there's just like a smoothness, a more like refined maybe. I think there are moments where it's like, what am I going to say here? Like, how am I going to explain this? You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Caleb?
One thing I have here, Christian, is I really like how you use vows throughout. One just area of improvement could be when you first tell us your title at the beginning, the way you worded it. Anyway, you just pause and just say your title rather than I don't know how to better say that.
I kind of moved too quickly past it.
Yeah, you just you mentioned it and then you said, oh, and that was my title. And
No, I think I know what you're saying. Yeah.
So maybe even just slowing down.
Same thing with your homiletical points too. It's just like, we're in or we're out. Here we go.
Yeah.
Like, oh, geez. If I wasn't poised with my pen, I would have missed it.
And related with that, I didn't catch well your title, what your title is, because of that. And then after you quote your main point, you start talking about that problem with the Ten Commandments about legalism and all those things. And later you said your two homiletical points, like how to live before God and how to live before other people. And I feel that a little bit. I was a little bit lost in that part, because I said, well, he started with his points talking about that, or he's going to where he's going to lead us in the passage.
So you thought that the legalism, laziness were going to be the points, and then you get confused when you get to...
I got confused because you
how to live before God,
main point,
other people.
then you start talking about legalism, and I said, but where that in the passage, and I didn't understand well how you
Yeah.
want to lead us through
Yeah.
the passage.
My goal was to try and like concede that and then get that out of the way ahead of time. Like we all kind of come in with this baggage, but let me like it's not those things, you know. So let's see what it actually has to say. But clearly that didn't quite happen. Okay, good to know.
Exact same thing.
Yeah.
I felt lost, especially at the beginning, like just like David was saying. I thought you're getting into your first point, and I realized it wasn't. And then when you did get in the points, like it happened so fast, I didn't know if I missed them or.
Yeah.
And then.
I didn't actually have points for the like there are no
Yeah,
points
and that's
in the
what I thought. Okay,
sermon.
maybe he doesn't
Yeah.
have points again.
There's 0 points.
And
No,
then,
homiletically, yeah.
And so it felt like a lot of different thoughts, and then you'd go on for a while about the thought. I guess the overall tone for me, I felt kind of lost. What you were saying.
I think it was not a bad idea to consider and refute that about legalism.
Yeah.
Right.
But maybe the way and the place
Right.
in the sermon was.
Yep.
Where do you think either place-wise or the way it was done could have been done better?
Maybe after you mention your main
Kind of
point
get
could
into it
be-
and then be like,
because
let me just pause.
that could
Yeah.
lead you
that's
to,
good.
to,
Yeah.
to give more punch to your main point that will
Right.
rescue his people.
Especially because you're talking to like ministry leaders
Yeah.
who at least have some sense of what's going on here.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean, are you suggesting he should have put it before he said his main point?
Maybe like an introduction, like
Oh, even before. Okay.
Yes, before.
Because I thought the place, I was glad you fronted it and put it before you talked about the Ten Commandments.
Yeah, but you're saying like just do it. I have to think about that.
Because you had said like point or verses 1 and 2, freedom, and it sounded like you were talking about freedom, and then you started talking about like legalism and stuff. So at least before then, maybe after your main point, who knows? But like
Yes.
definitely in the front matter of the
Before we get into the text.
yeah.
Your gospel connection, I think was like mediator, but there was like, I felt like there was a lot of different like angles you were playing at,
Yeah.
and so I wasn't sure, like I wasn't honestly really sure which one you were trying to drive home.
Oh, just all of them. Just as better.
Yeah.
Yeah. My goal was to do, I mean, kind of like what we talked about. It was just go back through and just be like, it's better, you know, it's even better than that, even better than that.
Yeah, and then we got to like Revelation 19 and 1 Peter 1, so like
Yeah.
it just felt like we were doing multiple things.
Okay.
Not just like multiple passages, but like multiple things. Like which one were we tracing?
All right, so these are good things, unless you can't live it out. That might be true, but that doesn't seem to be true here in the passage. And then so here's why that kind of became more problematic, because you kept saying words. So Moses does keep bringing the word to them as the mediator, but is that a good thing if I can't do it? And then why would I want access to a God I can't obey? Then it's all it is like, well, can you please stop talking? So it doesn't make sense of why they're like,
They do say we don't want God to talk to us or we're going to die.
well, we want you to talk to us.
It's true. But there is
They don't say we don't want to hear from God.
that is true.
So it was just like, hold on, I got so many questions now about, was this a good moment? Because you had so much good stuff about the wedding vows. So I was left thinking,
Yeah.
so if this is really a wedding thing, he's got a jerk for making these vows.
Because
Because vows are, and vows spoken are the essence of your desire for marriage. So if that's true, and if these are God's wedding vows, then his essence of his desires for marriage, I'm going to tell you things you can't do. That seems like it's a messed up marriage. So, and it contrasts with everything good you said about the vows themselves.
well, that's what I'm trying to like, this is good, but also like, it's not the end of the story, so it's not
Yeah, I get that.
perfect. Like there is
Yeah.
there is a reason that we're not just there.
Right. Yeah.
and that they do need a mediator. So I was trying to like ride that line.
Well,
Like
but-
it's a really good thing, but they still need a mediator.
So
It's a
but
really
is-
good thing, but
Do they just need a mediator in that text because they can't do what is being said?
I mean, yes and no.
Okay. Caleb.
Okay. One of mine Dave took was just the gospel connection. Felt like kind of shotgun. Wasn't sure what the focus was, but what I'll say here is another thing I had, Christian, was with application. I thought maybe as you got into the Ten Commandments, you could have drawn out some more application, even in the first section to
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Just an idea. I thought maybe you could have, or like in the second half, landed on one of them to
see,
really hit us. Or
I was
something.
I remember last time like someone made some comment about like, well, you said this, but then in the sermon you did this, you know, and so I was so worried about being like, I'm not going to get into the individual 10 commandments because they're not like this spiritual magic of like these are the 10 things, you know, because there's tons of stuff that's not there, and then being like, no, let me get into like one of these, you know. So I'm like, but I feel like that is a good idea because like that's like the place to do application, you know. So I kind of wrestled with how to actually pull that off
Yeah.
without contradicting myself.
Yes, I'm agree with the commentary that Dave gave you about the role that you were explaining the gospel, and with the apps that Caleb mentioned right now. But also, I think that the tone that you used in most of the sermon, it was too serious. It was too. I don't know. It wasn't like you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You start very well,
Yeah.
but then you got serious.
I think it's just like a nervous reaction is like I get very like serious.
Right.
And so I haven't figured out how to, I mean, I think it's just like I gotta do it more so I don't get so freaking nervous about it, you know? Because I'm just so focused on like, all right, gotta say,
Yeah, you definitely got
Right
tighter
thing.
the longer you went.
yep,
Like more
Yep.
tied to your notes, more like, okay, here we go.
yep, yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say your gospel connection. I thought, okay, he's going down the path of the mediator, and also we took a turn, like, okay, going this way, and then we went this way again, and then the concept of just kind of being lost again with your thoughts. And I thought maybe, I know it's the passage of the Ten Commandments, but it just seemed like you were really, I don't know, just not attached enough to the text itself. And so, just some thoughts on that.
I thought some of your like context work and both the up front and then like when you're in your gospel connection, like was pretty elementary for this audience. Like, and honestly, I was like, all right, we got to go through the whole story
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
Exodus again.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
So I would say just be careful about assuming too much about how I or your audience approach these commandments. So instead of asking an evaluative question, how do you view the Ten Commandments? You were like, why do you view the Ten Commandments like they're just laws? And I was like, whoa.
I know.
Yeah, I was like, you're probably the wrong person on that one. So it's just as cutting. How do you, right? Do you view them as wedding vows? If not, why not? Well, if I'm sitting there and I don't, then I'm still gonna get like cut to the core. But I'm being lured in by having to first evaluate and then be asked a hard question instead of just be like you. So it was in the form of a question, which is better than just be like you shouldn't. But
It's a kind of accusatory question.
accusatory for
Yeah.
sure. It's
Yeah.
like, okay. So what do you think you made some progress on?
I actually used my title this time
Hey.
instead of totally forgetting that it was there.
Caleb.
Christian, I thought you had some great structural cues. I know some others guys shared that they.
With the sermon with no structure.
Yeah,
I thought you had 4 points.
But what I'm referring to is even just some offhanded comments like before getting the 10 Commandments saying, I'm not going to preach a 10-point sermon. I was like, okay, well, I can listen to whatever he's going to say next.
Yeah, I trust you now.
And another example, your transition from finishing the 10 Commandments and going into that last section on the fear, I just said that was excellent, the way you transitioned.
Yeah, that's a really good transition.
And building it up.
Yeah.
So, kudos on that.
I really like how you link your intro talking about the vows and your main point. Like, we are rescued for a holy relationship with God. And then you use that across all the sermon.
I did like how you brought up the concept of like the baggage with the 10 Commandments. 'Cause if there's one thing that we all have baggage with, it is with the law and just trying to tackle that. I appreciated that.
Yeah, and with that, and then like with your application in general, where I felt like some of the context you weren't talking to the people in this room, like your application I thought was really good for the people in this room, because it's not just like how we do it, but it's how we talk about it for the sake of our people. Which, so I thought your application was very much focused on your audience.
I thought so while I agreed that like the whole thing about concession, we're afraid of legalism, that kind of thing. And it's strange to think about this as wedding vows. While that was like maybe in the wrong place, you had a genius refutation of the legalism idea by going back and comparing these things to wedding vows and being like, so you think that that's legalistic? I was like, oh geez, that is like sweet. Nobody thinks that. So you're completely going to win everybody over, or the person has to concede that like, oh yeah, wedding vows are legalistic. Right? Like, nobody's going to do that. So that was fantastic.
Yeah, right there with what people have been saying. I liked your concession of the baggage and the way you fronted it before going into 10 words. Just set us up, me up anyway, to listen. And yeah, I appreciate that.
I think you make a good exegetical site in the third part or in the last part when you say that the other place that the people saw the fire was in Egypt and the darkness was in Egypt and now they are seeing that here.
I thought relating the 10 Commandments to the vows of a wedding, I thought was excellent. And then it was excellent also because then it just kind of also magnified the concept of a relationship. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, I thought you used your title, besides saying it, like you used it well. And I think my favorite line was like, but the people end up breaking the wedding vows. Like that line just really stuck to me. So.
Yeah, so as much as I hated chiasm, I thought it was good because you actually utilized it. You were like, see, because it's kind of like all of life needs to be focused on serving God, loving others. So I was like, okay, all right. It actually, because who really cares about the chiasm at that point? Like you were kind of noticing something, but your whole argument didn't rest on the chiasm. It's really on what the chiasm was revealing about this whole idea of, the way it laid out was like, see, it's every part of our life. Like, okay, that I could buy. It didn't seem like too just like nerd-like. It was just it was used to an applicational effect. It's helpful. There we go.
There's that.
Yes.